This story takes place all the way back when I was still in high school. In order to earn money to fund my video game addiction, I regularly tutored this adorable little 11-year-old girl. We actually got along so well that the parents ended up asking me to babysit her and her little brother a couple times. One night in particular, the parents were meant to go downtown to watch a baseball game before a few drinks with friends, telling me they'd be back earlier than midnight. Basic babysitting job, right? Wrong. Right around 8 o'clock in the evening, it started raining pretty damned heavily. We all lived in a Gulf city at the time, and storms can blow in fast before turning into flooding way fast. Once it became horrifyingly clear we were in for one hell of a big storm, the parents tried to get home as quickly and safely as possible, but the streets had already started to flood, and apparently they ended up trapped in a parking lot. The irony was lost on me at the time, but not today. Anyway, the kids' parents called and we agreed I'd spend the night in their guest bedroom, while they booked themselves into a motel. I had the kids go to bed, which was kinda dumb as they got absolutely no sleep thanks to the pounding rain, while I set up in the kitchen to do homework and watch Netflix. After a little while, I start to notice water seeping in from under the back doors. They had a large house with like 3 double doors to the back, so it was a buttload of square feet. I got every towel in the house and started wiping up the water and using the towels to block the door. After this had mostly been cleaned up, I went back to the kitchen table to watch more Netflix. Not much else I could do, right? But I couldn't have been any more than like 15 minutes later when the power cuts out and all the lights shut off. This freaked me out a bit, but I tried to stay calm as best I could. That's when the burglar alarm went off in the other room. I pretty much crapped in my pants. I was in a pitch-black house with 2 young kids, surrounded by flooded roads that no one could drive on. After a minute or so of almost blind panic, I realized to my horror, I was the closest thing in the house to an adult. There was no one looking after me. In fact, I was directly responsible for those kids. So I grabbed the biggest, sharpest kitchen knife I could find, then went to go check all the doors. They were all still closed and no one was in the house, so I called the parents. It turns out the alarm went off when the power cut out, and I just needed to shut it off with a code upstairs. This happened about 3 more times over the next few hours. After the power came back on, I thought things had chilled out, but then we got a tornado warning. I went and got the kids from upstairs, and we all hung out in the study for about an hour until the warning passed. At this point, it was about 2 a.m., and I passed out in the guest bedroom. The parents woke me up when they got home around 7 a.m., and I drove home past giant fallen branches and stalled abandoned cars. It was surreal, but thank God everyone was safe and well in the end. Back when I was 17, I used to babysit for our neighbor, who at the time was a single mother who happened to be going through a particularly nasty divorce. She had 2 young sons, one of which was 8 years old, while the other was only around 18 months. They were absolutely adorable and very well-behaved kids, but you could tell that they were going through a lot, and the older one definitely showed signs of stress over the whole thing. I'll never forget the time he asked me why his daddy couldn't live with them anymore, and it honestly broke my heart. Not because I didn't have an answer for him, but because to hear it would have just been too much to bear. Too much for anyone to bear. Anyway, after a few months of her being alone, she finally decided to get back on the old dating horse. I was so happy for her. After such a rough time, she deserved to find happiness again, to find someone who had the wherewithal to be a real father to those 2 adorable little boys. So one night, she leaves on her date and says she'll be back around midnight, and not a moment later. Only, she doesn't tell me exactly where she's going, and I have no way to contact her because this was back in the 80s and no one had a cell phone. Well, they did exist, but not in the available commercial sense. It was all landlines back then, otherwise this might not have gone the way it did. So on the night in question, I'm chilling on the couch, absent-mindedly flicking through the TV channels. I'd put the kids to bed an hour previous, they're sleeping like rocks, and everything seems fine and dandy, when suddenly there's a knock at the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but then again, it wasn't my house, so I felt kind of obligated to answer and take a message or whatever. Only, as I start walking down the hallway towards the front door, whoever is on the other side starts banging against it and cursing up a storm. "Cheryl, I know you're in there. Open the goddamn door." Not what was exactly said, but I'm not keen on repeating some of the words they used. It was really harsh. So I'm just frozen, looking at the door in total fright, when the oldest boy came flying out of his room and down the stairs, running to the door and yelling, "Daddy's home!" I grab him and pull him away from the door. I had no idea what this guy's intentions were, and after all, they were probably divorced for a damned good reason. But I almost fainted with fear when I heard the words, "I got my shotgun in my truck, and tonight I'm gonna teach you a goddamn lesson you'll never forget." He screams this. Then I hear his footsteps moving up the gravel path. It appeared he wasn't bluffing at all, and if that was the case, then our lives were clearly in danger. When he gets back, he's banging on the door and threatening to start shooting through it if no one opens it. I grab both kids and run out the back door and across the street to my house, where my mom calls the police. When the police arrive a few minutes later, they actually find the ex-husband taking a massive dump on Cheryl's porch. He gets arrested, and I wait with the kids at my house for their mom to show up. Everyone was in tears by that point, even my mom, who is normally a pretty reserved woman. I mean, maybe he was just having a manic episode and no one was in real danger. But honestly, it was one of the most terrifying nights of my entire life. Thanks for watching, and if you have a story you would like to be told, then please go to r/paranormal_side to submit your story.